Dank u wel. Alles good? That ends the Dutch. We move into English now. Thank you for having me. It's good to be here. I'm not Anna Ott, as you probably guessed. But I am going to be talking about the future of recruiting and where we're going. I want to have another round of applause for the last speaker and the last presentation. If you could make a bit of noise for that again, please. I think I did a count up the other day, and this year I've done about 170 presentations, something like that, and spoken in 35 countries this year, about 60 different cities. And I'd put that talk in one of my top five, because in the whole of our industry, in the whole of what we work, there's probably 1% of people who are actually doing something. They're the stories that we're hearing. Doing things different, being brave. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what we can expect.
Bill, can you turn on this thing?
It's on. Can you hear me now? Yes, thank you. I'm the technology guy, you can probably tell. I need a help desk to get me out of that situation. So basically, what I'm really interested and passionate in is how do we change and what's going to happen? What's going to happen with recruiting? And what I see a lot in terms of change is in HR and recruiting. We had a king in England years ago, a king called King Canute, who some of you might know the story. And King Canute said, "I am the king of the land, and I can stop the sea." So they took his throne and they placed it at the sea, and he stood by the sea and he put his hand up and said, "I am the King of England, I command you to stop." And naturally he got wet feet and they had to carry him out of the sea. And he said, "I can't stop the sea." This is what I see in terms of change, is that resistance to what's going to happen. And there's lots of reasons for that I'm going to talk about a little bit. But the first point I want to look at is how people are different to organizations. People are agile. If I want to do something different, if I want to go to a different channel or behave differently or not give you access to my data or give you access to my data, I can make that decision instantly. And that may change a number of times even in one day. That is being agile. Organizations, if they want to make a change, even organizations who are forward thinking, have to create a business case, present it to a board, go out and buy something, change their practice, get permission, go to security, go to IT, and it can take us 2 to 3 years to make meaningful changes to what we do. We might be able to make slight changes. So even the organizations who stand on stage and say, we operate agile recruiting, we're not agile like people. So our challenge is, how are we going to keep up with people? And actually, what is our role? What is our function? What is our purpose as recruiters in the future? One of the things I'm increasingly believing, I've been involved in a project for an organisation called Olio for about 12 months, where I've been tracking hiring data across about 150 organisations in lots of different sectors to look at, is the behaviour changing? And I've worked with a couple of other ATSs and CRMs to get source data. So everything that I'm going to talk about is based on the data story and not something that I woke up and thought. And what I've seen is candidate and applicant behaviour is significantly changing, particularly around employer brand and the way in which people apply. And this will significantly impact what we need to be in talent acquisition or recruiting in the future. So that's what I want to share with you. First area I want to look at is a new kind of good. By the way, all the slides were designed and drawn by a street artist called Hux, who's my 17-year-old daughter. She has a real name as well, but she designs slide decks and all that kind of thing. So it's kind of a real Gen Z slide deck. And it's where I think we need to start if we're thinking about the future is what is good. What would be good outcomes? Some of that is going to be data and numbers and volume, the stuff we've looked at. And some of that is going to be moral outcomes. How do we be the organisations that we want to be in the world? How do we be with people? I find it ludicrous that we still have conferences about candidate experience in which everyone comes out and says, yes, it's terrible, let's not do anything about it. Right? It's kind of ludicrous. And that's no disrespect to the people who put those conferences on. So what would be good? What would be good in operations? What would we have to be? And the future that I see is one where we don't have recruiting teams or talent acquisition. We don't have sources. We have something different, some kind of hybrid model. I don't know what it's called. We might call it people, department, whatever it is. But something which is central to the success of the organisation that begins with settling the age-old argument, which is recruiting and talent acquisition is part of the HR function. It's part of the HR function, inbred. It's top of the supply chain, as we were talking before, bringing people into an organisation. And the second thing is looking at, if we're in HR, driving attraction and hiring, what does that mean? So the other area where I've been having a lot of look at is employer brand, right? Because right about now, organisations have just about caught up with employer brand and said, yeah, we recognise employer brand, we recognise employee value proposition, we need to have one of those. And those pesky agile people have moved away from it. They've moved the employer brand. The employer brand is no longer relevant where it was. Still critical, still important, but no longer important where it was. Because what is taking over in the current age is job brand. Job is more important than employer. This is how people are choosing where they go to work. They are choosing job. And they're choosing job on the basis of what their next job is going to be when they leave you. So from day one, they're attracted by the fact that they are going to leave you at some point as an employer. So how is this job going to move me to another job, which is the one I really want? That's how they look at jobs. So we have to think about how we present that. The other thing we've learned from the data is that when people are looking for jobs, my belief now, looking at the numbers, is people have never been more focused on careers than ever before. They're just not focused on careers with a company. They're not saying, let's go and work for this company for 30 years and at the end of it you're going to say, thanks for coming and here's your clock. It's been great. Thanks a lot. Thanks for the memories. Bye. What's happening is people are focused on careers for self. I no longer have faith in the company. The company is not going to provide me with the things I used to want, the long-term security. Because if the company changes, I'm going to be laid off next week. Or the skills may change and I may become irrelevant to the organisation. So I no longer believe in the company. So how am I going to better myself? And this is where I see this new role coming in what attracts people is jobs. What we're seeing is they're applying for multiple jobs, more jobs that look similar with multiple employers. Attracted by 4 key things. There's 4 things that you need: a single job landing page for every job, and you need people to make instant decisions based on 4 things. They need to be able to very quickly see 4 things on your job landing page and be able to apply from that place, because they're probably going to job. And all this talk about job boards being dead, right? We've never had more people applying for jobs from job boards. Kind of interesting. My 17-year-old daughter summed it up at a conference the other day when somebody was speaking about a new Facebook app and how Gen Z never went to career site, never went to websites anymore, any of that stuff. And she went, I'm 17, the only place I look for a job is Indeed. I said, I'm Gen Z. Me and all of my friends only look for jobs at Indeed. And he went, why do you look on Indeed? And she turned around and went, because they've got all the jobs. That's where the jobs are. Why wouldn't you do that? So we have to think about what people do. They find jobs and apply for jobs. And what they're looking to see in that job to make the decision about whether they apply or whether they don't apply is certain things. The things they are going to see when they make the decision about whether they apply or not is the job title. Job title is really important. And it's not about a sexy marketed job title that no one searches for. What do people search for? And you may need to create multiple pages with different job titles based on all the things that job may be called. Because that's a simple search destination. Job title, salary. They want to see salary. They want to see numbers in that, which is realistic because they use salary to determine should I apply or not. Is it the kind of thing where I could be successful or not? So salary and not a range. And the most important thing, which most people don't put on their job pages, is the disqualifiers. What would stop me from being successful? They don't really want to know about the job because they're going, if I am a developer or a store manager or a production line operative for company A, the duties are probably not going to be that different in company B. So you don't have to dress that up and make it look sexy. What I want to understand is before I put myself through the pain of applying for this job, because you've used technology to make applying for a job as painful as possible. We've built Game of Thrones recruiting processes, which basically says the person who gets hired at the end is not the best qualified or the best suited, but the last one alive at the end of a painful process, right? The last one who sticks around long enough to get the job, we go, well, you can have it because there's no one else left. That's kind of how we've built our hiring process. Really, we've done that. And we've used technology to do that. So now what they're looking for is, before I put myself through what I know is going to be painful, show me. And after they've applied, they are all over your employer brand. So it doesn't mean your employer brand's not important. It just means it's shifted from attraction to selection. Because if I'm going to apply to 4 companies or 5 companies with a similar job title, I'm going to start ranking those companies. Which one do I actually want? Part of that is going to be the interview process and how that goes, the information you make available to me, how attractive it is. But what's the number one attraction to people in a role outside of salary? The number one attraction is learning. Learning content becomes important, right? So, my view, talent acquisition should work with learning and development as a single function, single people function, that covers the lifestyle, the life cycle of a person, from when we attract them to all of the internal mobility should be run by talent acquisition. If we're the best people to spot talent and find talent, who better to find the best talent in our own people? Career planning, learning and development, one of the things you're going to have to learn, and what will attract people. If people don't work for companies anymore, they're agile, they change, they have multiple job careers, what they're going to lose is corporate learning. Right now our learning is corporate and it's dictated, right? I joined the company says, we think you might be a good manager in a while, so we're going to start sending you on some management courses. We're going to teach you how to cross a river of crocodiles in case you ever need that in your management career. Send us off somewhere to abseil a building, which I have yet to use in my recruitment career, but I learned to do that on a number of leadership courses, right? Very good at that. Should I ever be in shark-infested waters, I'd be okay at making critical decisions. So this is how people have learned. They've learned in a corporate environment based on what the company wants you to learn on a predicted career path, which is kind of like that. First of all, you're a team leader, then you're an assistant manager, then you're a manager, then you're an area manager, regional manager, operations director, board director, whatever it is, very predictable. Now people are saying, no, I don't want to do that. I want to do that over there. I want to go from this to marketing, to sales, whatever it is. And I understand that I'm going to have to learn some stuff on the way, so I'm going to have to learn for myself. So if you share as an organisation learning content and share it publicly, exactly what Hung was talking about, people will connect and stay connected with you because there is a value. And when they're doing learning and learning exercises and all that kind of stuff, you're also evaluating their current level of knowledge. And what is going to be the most important skill we're going to need is going to be the ability to learn and change in an agile way. What better to do that than to have people learning from our content? And what better employer brand than having our people sharing their knowledge and what I will teach you that I go, I really like this person, this is my Yoda, and if I got an opportunity to go and work with them, I definitely would. So think about it, learning and training, all the internal ability, all the career planning, all the skills you're going to need to acquire, being one single function. But what changes that? What affects it right now? What makes our job hard in attraction? It's this bit, rage against the machine, right? It's people frustrated by technology. All users of technology hate technology. It's kind of the thing. And they hate the thing they have, and they want the new thing because it's shinier. That's generally my experience. Organisations go and say to me, I want a new ATS. And I say, why do you want a new ATS? They go, so I can use it like the old one. So we can do what we used to do, just with a different font or a different colour. People are frustrated by that. So what we have to look at is understand if people are frustrated and angry with the technology, how do we change it? How do we change our focus to make it more useful? So that's one of the things I want to talk about. The next thing is this, algorithmic anarchy. How are you viewed in the world? You are viewed by what the internet serves up as an opinion, and that is driven by an algorithm. And the algorithms have gone kind of crazy. That's why we have Brexit, by the way. I didn't vote for it, but some people did. I'm strictly European. But content is delivered to people on a personal basis. We can learn from that stuff and say, how do we make algorithms work? And if we're going to be using more algorithms, more technology to make decisions like shortlisting and all that kind of thing, what are we basing the outcomes on? Are we basing the outcomes on what we used to think was good, cost per hire, time per hire, old metric, or do we base it on something different? Are we looking for something different that will make us successful? Retention of employment is not the measure you want to look at. Really not important. Retention of employment is a measure of your inability to fire people who can't do their job as an organisation. What is important is retention of relationship. How do we connect with you forever? How do we have so that you find the value to still open our content, still look at our training stuff, still hear from me, whether you work for me or not. So we're going to have to start looking at the algorithms and saying, do we actually understand them? The more that we use technology to give us reports and make decisions for us, the more we're slave to it, the more we're going to lose our underlying knowledge of the foundations of what makes it work. So what learning are we going to need to make it? For instance, if I'm a sourcer, in the beginning, I used to need to know about Boolean strings and all that kind of good stuff to find people on the internet. People like Gordon would teach me this kind of witchcraft. That's what we did, right? It was kind of wizardry. Now I can buy technology that will do a search for me, right? It'll create a Boolean string and it'll go out and do it. But if I don't understand the fundamentals of what happened with that technology, I have to trust the result. And I can't question it or change it. That means the result will be based on what used to be good. It's like matching technology, all that kind of stuff. How do we decide who we measure? How do we decide, right, these 10% of people are our high performers, the hypos, let's hire more of them. By the way, they're all white, they all went to this university, none of them are female, because that's what we used to hire, so let's just keep doing the same thing. We don't change anything by seeking the same outcomes. All we do is put the old practices on steroids, which gives us higher speed, higher volume, and more opportunity to get it wrong. And we don't have the fundamental knowledge to understand we're going in the wrong direction because we never learnt the stuff in the first place. So if you're going to give anyone access to any technology, this is my advice to you, which relies on data. First, look at some learning and have a data driving license. Before we can use this, we have to understand how it works. We need the fundamental knowledge. Make that content available internally and avoid anarchy. Understand that people are slaves to technology. We're addicted to it. We're chained to it, right? We're chained to our technology. It's going to be our work and our life. So if we're going to impede on people, interruption with content and messaging, it better be good and it better be relevant. Because the other thing is you're going to see open public channels quickly disappearing. Things like Facebook, LinkedIn, all that kind of stuff. Communication over the next 2 to 3 years will be entirely one-to-one, personalised, and in a messenger channel. In a messenger channel. So when you think Facebook, you need to be thinking Facebook Messenger, not Facebook Open Channel. When you think LinkedIn, you need to be thinking LinkedIn Messenger and chat. Social content. When you think of things like Slack, it's invite for a purpose, which is very relevant to something I want to do now. So we're going to need to start understanding that and understanding that we're interrupting people. This is the other one that I want to just briefly touch on, but big lesson, 2 things. I don't see any AI in recruiting technology at the minute. I don't see anything which I would call AI in recruiting or HR. I hear a lot talked about. I don't see any blockchain or any of that funky stuff. What I see is fantastic machine learning. Fantastic machine learning and recommendation based on past performance. And the success of this is going to be determined by how well we decide what a good outcome is going to be and the data that we put in the front. Shit in, shit out. Right now we're putting shit in. Google said machine learning is hard. When they say that, I go, yeah, that's probably right. If they think it's difficult, it probably is difficult. It's not easy. Simple concept. What makes it difficult? We have all the wrong data, or we're using the data in the wrong way, or the data is biased. So this was the classic example. Amazon built a matching software which became a misogynistic recommendation machine. It said only hire men for developer roles. And when you said, how did we reach that outcome? The answer was, because generally we only hire men for developer roles. So right now we need to be thinking about what data are we going to use, and we're probably going to understand that our current organisation has been built on biases, whether we like that or not. It's been geared towards certain people, whether that's class, race, gender, whatever it is. So we're going to have to use data to build new matching technology selection machines based on something different, which gives us new outputs, not the old ones. That's everything from attraction. We actually need to go out to different channels, different places, reach people in different personalised ways. And we need to look at our process and our technology by understanding the future is going to be about power to the people. It is all about the users and not about the company. Been to too many conferences where we're saying, need to get the seat at the table, need to talk the business of the organisation. That's great for the organisation, but it hasn't been great for the people. What is going to be a major measure of everything is going to be happiness at work. People are going to be with us for a short period of time. They're not going to have blind loyalty to the company that they had in the past. Companies who have blind loyalty are kind of weird. They're more like cults than organisations. We want to avoid them. We definitely don't want to go and work with them. And we definitely don't want to work with people who love their job, because they're really weird. So don't use your brand advocates to go out there and say, come work for us, we're great. Have people say, come work for us, we're okay, we're all right, we're not too bad. And understand that every process has to be driven around the people, the users, recruiters, hiring managers, candidates, applicants. Processes and technology built and thought out to enable them to do what they want to do in the simplest possible way, where they can dictate what that process is rather than us dictating to them. So think agile, think that way, and look for people-centered outcomes. Because when you put people at the center of what you're doing for their whole career scale, you have a successful future. And not doing what we're currently doing, which is the Canute thing, saying, let's halt the technology, let's halt the progress, let's keep what we're doing just on a smaller screen. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Bill.
My pleasure.
So,
Thank you, El.
I think we have a couple of questions here. From your perspective, what would be the best use case for AI or ML in recruitment?
Well, so let's separate this out, right? So AI, in my definition, is independent thinking technology. We don't have that yet, something that passes the Turing test. Machine learning, I'm seeing some great stuff. Things that can recognize patterns. So everything that Hung was talking about, right now, 80% of our time and money is spent in the top of the funnel. 80% of our time, money and investment is on attraction. It's actually getting people to apply. Because what we're doing is saying we need to get as many people to apply as possible in the hope that some of them are okay. So we're building shit magnets, right? We're just saying, let's attract all these people who are never ever going to work for us and spend time looking at their CV and deciding whether they're any good or not. That's what we do as organizations. Because we try and make our employer brand as much employer bland as possible. How can we look like everybody else? Because that's what we have to do, right? So what I think we need to do in terms of machine learning is understand the behaviors of people so we can change our process in an agile way. That means tracking everything, measuring trends and recognizing things, identification of people, attraction, recruitment, marketing and communication, chatbots. And chatbots, by the way, what we're learning from chatbots, just a little share for you, are not about, forget about the NLP piece, the natural language processing, the thing that we will go to a robot and it will say, ask me anything. And I'll go, what's the weather? I'll go, hang on a minute, I'll tell you. What people want from chatbots to be successful is a series, a thinking tree of here's 3 things, here's 5 things, here's 10 things. That's what people want. Not open questions, but the opportunity to, when I don't get what I want, connect me with an actual person I can talk to. And what you'll find is when you replace every form in your process, whether it's an assessment, a test, apply, with a chatbot, and you get about 90% completion instead of 20%. It's pretty, and that's almost overnight. But when things like frequently asked questions on your site, on your websites, remember you're channeling to job, not to company. So we're not saying, here's our whole company, look at it all. We're going, what do you want to know about? And I'm going, I want to know about salespeople in your company in Utrecht. That's what I want to know about. So just give me that stuff. So you want a path that does that kind of thing. And when you have that and machine learn those answers, then the answer, because you start, believe it or not, when you design chatbot workflow, you start with answers, not questions. Here's the answer, what are all the questions someone might ask? It's kind of counterintuitive. It's the opposite of what we expect. So understand that all web content will be chat. What those questions and what people want to do, what they want to understand is machine learning. And then who applies, what they apply for, where their background is, machine learning, learn those patterns. Shortlisting, machine learning. Scheduling, all those kind of tasks, machine learning and pattern recognition to duplicate or to present the pattern and say, this is what we're doing right now, should we do something different? The fact that we do it right now doesn't mean the outcome has to be let's do it again, could be let's do it better. That's what machine learning is all about.
Thank you so much. 3 things why people choose an employer brand.
They don't choose an employer brand. They don't. That's a myth. Right? That's just bullshit. That's sold to you by consultants like me so we can make money selling you employer brand. The reality, as someone who's done that for quite a long time, the reality is people choose job brand. And job brand and employer brand is significantly different. How is this job going to help me? Employer brand becomes critical after the apply. If you look at behaviors, what you're seeing is most people going to a single job and applying for multiple single jobs which are fairly similar And once they get a reaction like, yeah, come for an interview or we're interested in you, they're all over your employer brand. So I'm not